Hey everybody, it's Chris Michaels. I am redoing a video I did about 3 years ago where I walked through a dream that pointed to a Australian physicist's explanation of how gravity can be an electric force at the atomic level. And I'm going to do a few things here. I'm going to give a short background on myself. I'm going to just give a summary of dreams interpreting from how I've learned it during the last 12 years. And I'm going to walk through the specific dream that was actually rather complex. It took a couple months to sort it out. And it did point to this physicist's explanation of gravity, again, as an electric force. So we're dealing with alternative cosmology, Marvel technology, propulsion, and space energy. All of this is important because it's one of a series of dreams I had, many dreams, like 50, 60 or more, maybe close to 70 by now, all dealing with a space energy invention, which I now have the design details for. And we're ready to build this thing anytime. We're just waiting for the funding to come in, but I'll get to that later. So again, this is a redone video from it's now as of updated as of 2024. And I want to go back through it again and maybe explain it better than I probably did 3 years ago. So, okay, you can find more about everything I'm talking about here, chrismichaels.com. That's my website where I deal with dreams and interpreting and that kind of thing. And okay, let's get started. So, my background, there, that's me on the right side. Uh, I have a history of what I call science dreams in the last 10 years. There's a reason why that started. I wanted to know what God put me here for. I'm Christian. I didn't know God speaks in dreams for most of my life. I had always kind of wondered about Daniel and Joseph. How did they interpret dreams? Because they did quite a good job of it back then. But up until over a decade ago, about 12 years ago now, I had no knowledge whatsoever of any of this at all. And I lived my entire life with none of this, knowing nothing, basically living in the dark, which was, looking back, was pretty horrible. But anyway, so I've learned a lot in the last 12 or more years. And so that's kind of my basis here. I want to get into, like I say, a basic introduction to dreams, like Dreams 101. Just keep it simple, just give you some ideas. I've been interpreting dreams myself through my website for the last 9 years now. And I've had thousands of emails sent to me from just over 800 people all over the world. And so that's something I've been doing for a long time now. I would say I have a fair amount of experience doing that. Okay, but my science dreams began about 10 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit about the alternative cosmology that this dream points to, and I'm going to get into the exact dream that pointed to this explanation of gravity as an electric force. Okay, so um, starting in 2011, more about my background. I received proof that God still speaks in dreams. I am not a physicist or an astronomer or an engineer. I am an Air Force Academy grad from 1994. I spent 20 years in the Air Force, uh, primarily as an intelligence officer, but some other things along with that before I got into intelligence. And my life drastically changed when I started searching for my unique, specific life purpose, which I wanted to know what God put me here for. A lot of the things I tried doing myself didn't go nearly as far as I wanted them to go. I kept finding roadblocks and doors closed and with things that I wanted to do. And I finally got to the point where I said, I got to know why I'm here. There must be something I'm missing very big. I've got to know what it is, and I've got to do that. And so when I started asking those questions, which honestly I've seen most people don't ever ask those questions. They don't ask, first of all, God, who's the only person you can ask. And secondly, they just don't ask at all. And so they just kind of make up their own plan, which I kind of did myself up to a certain point. And again, my life drastically changed when I went through this process, which I deal with quite extensively on my website, chrismichaels.com. Okay. Um, by the way, if you are totally foreign to what I'm saying, I'm not trying to do anything other than tell my testimony. That's it. So you can just take it or leave it. I hope you do take it and listen to what I'm going to present here. And again, sometimes you got to be really open-minded, which I had to do myself. And so, okay, let's get started here or continue on. My science dreams began in 2014. Electrical energy themes started to emerge and they repeated, again, repeated themes in my dreams. There's something about electrical energy kept coming up in a lot of different ways, but in the beginning, I didn't know what was going on. Okay, I've also had many frequent references to popular movies that point to, they're like metaphoric symbols that point to certain energy themes. And the more I saw these dreams, all of a sudden one day there were some things that tied everything together, and it was really shocking to me when I finally found out what God was trying to tell me with all these science dreams. And that it was quite a few years ago now. Let's say go back to about 7 or 8 years when I suddenly was able to put this all together. Okay, this also required extensive research for me on my part to learn a whole new field. First of all, to begin my understanding of how to interpret dreams. Secondly, to find out what it is that God was pointing me to, because He showed me all kinds of, again, scientific themes in my dreams and energy themes, and I don't have a background in that, so I had a lot of learning to do, and I really did. I did a ton of research and had to learn things that I just never paid attention to in my, when I was a kid at the academy, my university education. I just wasn't into this back then, which is kind of a big point because when God starts showing you your purpose, it's very good chance it's going to be something you never thought of before. Not always, but He's going to show you all kinds of stuff that you didn't know. And a lot of times it comes in these kind of dreams. So we're going to get into that in a little bit more. Okay, again, I have no personal background in energy technology, and it's quite shocking that God started talking to me in these kind of dreams about that. So He just picked me for this. Okay, some of the popular movie references in my dreams, they have energy tech references. Marvel, Avengers, specifically Tony Stark, Star Wars. I've seen the Millennium Falcon show up many times. Back to the Future, Captain Marvel. There were a lot of repeat themes, and that's just a starting point. There's been other things too, but just to give you an idea of some of the popular movie references that have all connected in this whole series of 50, 60, or 70 dreams that I've had by now. Okay, just speaking of dreams in general, you may not know it, but dreams have changed the world. And a lot of science, medical, technology, and business breakthroughs and ideas came from dreams at night. Einstein received the whole knowledge of the speed of light and redshift, the redshift, blue shift. That came in a dream at night. Maybe you know that he had a dream sledding down a hill. He went faster and faster, saw the stars in the sky, and they changed color. And you got to look this one up yourself because I'm kind of paraphrasing it. I'm summarizing. But the whole red shift, blue shift came because of a simple dream of sledding down a hill at really high speed. I think he was actually in the dream sledding at light speed. Okay. Kekule discovered the atomic shape of benzene as a circular shape in a dream. It had to do with a snake eating its tail. And and there was more to it. Again, look these up on your own, but that's how he discovered the shape of the benzene atom. Uh, Mendeleev, he had a dream about the periodic table, the organization of it, and he woke up, he wrote it down. Again, you got to write down your dreams. And a guy named Elias Howe, he created the sewing machine because he invented the sewing machine because of a dream. Larry Page invented Google because of a dream, and he talked about that. I think the University of Michigan. You can find that video online. David Adair. A lot of people don't know this, but David Adair. I had dreams validating this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. I had dreams validating that David Adair's testimony is absolutely true. He created the only fusion reactor rocket engine in 1971 as a teenager. Why? Because dreams at night. And again, a lot of people don't realize his story, but you got to check into it because, again, I had dreams proving that his story was right. Okay, now, extensive series of dreams, advanced energy and space technology. These are things that I have seen in my own dreams. First of all, flying cars, many references to that. And these were literal flying cars. They looked just like the DeLorean in Back to the Future when Doc Brown made that thing fly. It looks like a regular car, but it gets up off the ground and flies. That's what I've seen in my dreams many times. Okay, civil power stations. Yes, the new energy technology invention that I'm going to refer to here does relate to civil power stations. All new energy, electrical energy production, all new. And again, we have the design for this thing now. It took a long time to get it, took years to get it, but I got it. Okay, anti-gravity. That will factor in with the dream I'm going to tell you in this video. Okay, nuclear fusion, yes, that has been referred to. Star Wars propulsion, light speed travel. I've had many, many dreams about all of this. Okay, and I can't get into all of them here, but I will give you a resource where I have talked about a lot of these extensively, of course, plus my own website, chrismichaels.com. Okay, so my own personal process has been documented publicly, blogs, videos, podcasts, ebooks, which you can find at chrismichaels.com. That's my personal website where I deal very heavily with dreams. And the invention website is bluecuberocket.com. So you can go to that. The links for that will be in the description below the video here. Okay, now September in October of 2020, remember the whole virus was going on, everything was shut down. God gave me a whole series of dreams showing me what I needed to do with my time. He gave me many homework assignments and dreams. And one of those was a series of dreams that pointed to and proved that the electric or plasma universe model is the correct cosmology, the model of how the universe operates. And so you can find the electric universe scientists. It's more heavily electric, but plasma and electricity, they all factor together. In space, you can't have one without the other. And you have to go straight to the guys that talk about this, the electric universe scientists. I can't explain, all their theories. I give you a summary here in a couple of minutes, but you got to go straight to them. I don't want to be the source of education on this because, again, I'm not a physicist or an electrical engineer, which you really have to know that stuff in order to understand how the universe can be electric and not the stuff we're taught in mainstream science in our universities. Okay, so again, September, October 2020, I had a whole series of dreams pointing directly to this. And I'll tell you, when I started following one of the YouTube channels, Thunderbolts Project, it took me a long time to really get what they were saying because we've been so programmed that the mainstream science is the correct model. But if you go back to the origin of it 100 years ago, that was not a mainstream model. It was just all these new models were emerging, and for some reason everyone went in the direction of what we call mainstream science, and they turned their thumbs down on the electric universe model. Well, sorry to say, but my dreams pointed to the electric universe as the correct model. And again, it took me a lot of time watching those videos at the Thunderbolts Project YouTube channel. It took me a long time to really understand it. If you learn something wrong the first time, you have to work even harder to undo all that and then learn it the right way. And it's just very complex stuff, but that was what happened. That's when I started learning the scientific basis for an invention that now I have the details for. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the electric universe model, this invention would not work. And you're going to see eventually when this happens that, it works, and this is the only way it works. And so the people that reject the electric universe model, you're going to have a very hard time explaining why this works and the theories that you've learned that you hold on to, why that doesn't work. Okay, so anyway, here is a little bit of a summary. What is the electric universe? Okay, and by the way, new energy technology inventions require proper understanding of science. Okay, if you don't have that, then you're going to be very limited. You're going to think that the whole world is supposed to run on combustible fuel engines and for cars, rockets, and you think you're going to go to Mars on a rocket. I'm sorry, that is not the way we're going to get to Mars. That's kind of a joke, actually. Rockets were invented in World War II, and they still fly the same speed. Sure, the technology is better. We can do landings like SpaceX does with the reusable boosters and all that kind of thing. We have computers and all that. But it hasn't, it's still the same speed. It's still the same fuels. It's still the same everything, combustible stuff. And my dreams are showing me that is not the way of the future at all. That is very outdated. Okay, so what is the electric universe? Very simply, they say that electricity plays a much more significant role in the universe than is widely accepted. The sun and stars are electrically powered by external currents that come through the galaxies and then go out to the whole solar system. Okay. So basically, sun and stars are electric light bulbs, not giant balls of lava. By the way, I've been saying this lately, but when is the last time you've seen a volcano and the lava coming out of it was so blindingly bright you couldn't look at it? Well, the answer is never. So how do you say lava how can you say the sun is made up of lava when lava is not that bright? It doesn't even make sense. If you look at the sun as an electric light bulb, well, if you turn on a light bulb, it's very, very bright. You can't look directly at most light bulbs unless you have the dimmer turned down, whether it's LED or incandescent. That should be the simplest proof that this old model that we've been learning from NASA and all this stuff is garbage. It doesn't even make sense. So anyway, I know some people are like swallowing your tongue and rolling around the floor in convulsions because you can't handle what I'm saying here. That's okay. Look, I'm just okay. Anyway, let's move on. Um, Planetary surface features like craters are caused by super lightning, and there's very good explanation for how that can happen. Like I say, the electric universe scientists can get into all that. I'm just giving you some of the basic tenets of the the electric universe cosmology. Okay, cosmic phenomena are electrical in nature. Nebulas, these like neutron stars or these pulsars and that kind of thing. If you understand the electric universe model, their explanation, if you really study both, you're going to see that the EU model is way more logical than the stuff we've been taught in mainstream science. It's the mainstream science doesn't even make sense. They keep coming up with more and more complications, which let me get into that in a minute here. Okay, but continuing on, electrical engineering and plasma physics is required knowledge in order to understand the electric universe. And how many electrical engineers and plasma physicists do we have studying the astronomy? Well, not nearly that many, which is why they don't understand how it actually works. Okay, the universe is not held together by gravity. The universe operates on electric and magnetic currents. And many logical explanations, again, are lacking in mainstream cosmology, but they do make perfect sense with the electric universe explanation. Okay, mainstream beliefs about gravity. It is one of the four forces. It is the weakest of all the forces. It is an unknown force, yet scientists claim it holds galaxies and solar systems together. How can it be such a weak force? And I don't remember the exact equation, but it's something like the farther you get from a planet or star or something, some celestial body, the farther away you get from it, the weaker gravity gets almost at an exponential rate. So if that's the case, then how in the world is an entire solar system, a galaxy held together by such a force that gets weaker and weaker rapidly as you move away? It doesn't even make sense. This makes no sense. Sometimes you got to stop and go back to the basics. Okay, what does this thing that you claim to believe in, what does it really say? What is it? And does this even make sense anymore? Okay. So controversy over the electric universe. Okay, hundreds of years ago, a guy named Ptolemy said that the Earth was the center of the universe, and then these other guys, Copernicus, Galileo, came along and said that's garbage, and they wanted to burn them at the stake just about. But the problem was Ptolemy. Okay, we're doing this all over again. Think about it. Ptolemy, they kept coming up with all these theories for why their scientific models they didn't work. So they kept coming up with excuses and exceptions and all these fake rules that were so complicated that they didn't even make any sense anymore. And they finally got to the point where there were so many complications and contradictions and just nonsense that they eventually had to admit that the theory was wrong. And they had to go with Copernicus and Galileo. Of course, we've known for hundreds of years the Earth is not the center of the universe. Well, back then they believed that, but look what it took to break off this false Ptolemy model. Okay, well, and the same thing again. It's happening again now. It's all over again, and hardly anyone recognizes it. Okay, mainstream stronghold on beliefs. Why? You keep hearing things over and over again, and you don't use your own brain to critically examine then you're not, you can't just accept what people say. You've got to use your brain. Critical thinking skills are lacking, and I have a lot to say about that, but I don't want to get sidetracked here. Okay, again, the mainstream theories of science cosmology require increasing levels of complexity to the point of absurdity. Okay, nonsensical quantum physics theories. Okay, the electric universe guys can tell you all about that. I don't want to get into that here. Okay, just giving you a summary. What is the electric universe? Okay, which is going to be important as we continue on in this video. Okay, now the Marvel dream that that I'm going to talk about, I call it a Marvel dream. In February 2021, pointed to an electric gravity model as described by Australian physicist Wal Thornhill. He died just a couple years ago, I think in his 80s, and but he was one of the leading proponents on the electric universe. The explanation, and specifically, I think he's one of the leading guys dealing with the idea that gravity can be an electric force at the atomic level. And my dream I'm going to tell pointed directly to his a very lengthy and kind of a complex video. I had to watch a few times to start to understand it, but my dream pointed directly to his explanation, which you can still find on YouTube. It was only recorded a few years ago, and it's available. Okay, so let's just cover very quickly Dream Interpretation 101, the basic level. Okay, first of all, dreams are parables made up of complex metaphors that require proper methods of interpretation, including knowledge of creation. Now, in the Bible, Daniel and Joseph understood science to the extent back then, that's how they could interpret dreams. And so you have to understand this, that science is in the Bible, and there's a lot more science in the Bible than you would ever realize, but it's kind of hidden. It's not on the surface. There are some clues there, but a lot of people don't ever really get into it. Some do, but I'm going to deal with something today that a lot of people have never heard of before. Okay, now here it is. Daniel chapter 1, verse 4 says, talking about Daniel and his three friends. Their pagan name was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but the Bible tells what their real original Hebrew names were. Anyway, I'm not trying to get sidetracked there, but it says about them, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had the ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. Okay, they're very wise, very knowledgeable, and they had the ability they understood science. Okay, and that's how Daniel and Joseph were able to interpret dreams, because in some ways, because they understood science, like the original science, the science of creation, as it is explained in the Bible. Okay, now let's go, instead of Dreams 101, let's go straight to 401 and skip all the in-between stuff here, because if I don't skip it, we'll be here forever. Okay, I'm dealing with Marvel dreams. What I mean by that is, I'll explain, but Marvel dreams reveal mysteries of the universe, mysteries of creation, and contain complex multiple meanings. My dreams, specifically, Marvel dreams, have included both technology and supernatural manifestations, sometimes both where they cross over, and some of the dreams have discussed both at the same time. Again, very complex, multi-layers of interpretation. Okay, so the word Marvel did not originate, with Marvel Cinematic Universe. It didn't originate with, DC Comics, that kind of thing. It originated 600 years ago in the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verse 10. Right here it said, and he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels. Now, this is God talking. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. Now, terrible thing means like amazing, astounding, something that strikes fear in people in terms of the fear of God, which is very lacking in today's society. But Marvels is coming back now, and I have some things to say about that later. Okay, so anyway, just to say that the term marvels comes from the Bible 6,000 years ago. And if you use the concordance to go back to the original language, it was written, the Old Testament written in Hebrew, in Strong's Concordance, it's the Hebrew word, which is cataloged as H6381 apla, which means to be marvelous, wonderful, surpassing, extraordinary, beyond one's power, difficult to do, difficult to understand. Again, that's the Strong's Concordance for that word marvels right here in Exodus 34:10. Okay, so marvel, science, and dreams. Now, two verses you got to know that relate to what we're talking about here. Proverbs 25, verse 2. I've mentioned this so many times. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. The kings are supposed to be us. That's what Jesus died to make us kings and restore what was lost with the sin of Adam and Eve. but God conceals things, and we are expected to go looking for it, searching and find it. Okay, that's Proverbs 25:2. Now, Proverbs 8, verse 12, it only says this in the King James. It says, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge of witty inventions. Again, you got to go to the King James for this. Witty inventions, knowledge of witty inventions. And that all goes back to how God conceals things. And specifically, he does that in dreams. Other ways too, but he reveals things in dreams, but he does it in a way that you have to search out very diligently and study in order to interpret them. And I've been doing this for the last 12 plus years now. And you're going to see an example of that in a couple of minutes. Okay. Complex symbols and multiple meanings. Okay. So in my Marvel level dreams, I've had at times four levels of interpretation, multi-layer messages, where there are four different interpretations that all came to pass in some cases, or I was able to interpret them and they all made sense. The first would be a personal metaphoric message. The second, a literal event that was foretold in advance that later happened in real life, and this has happened with me. Number three, a mystery of science revealed, and yes, I have a ton of those. And four, a supernatural manifestation. What I mean is a miraculous supernatural act, like a superhero type thing. And I've had all four of those in some of my Marvel dreams. Again, I call them Marvel dreams because they reveal mysteries, they have complex meanings, and they reveal things that are just way beyond, the standard very low level churchy stuff that is just, it's really horrible. I just, I have more to say about that, but maybe I should avoid that here. Um, anyway, I have to say it, but the church is lost on most of this, and that's why I don't you don't find me connecting with too many of those. But I am part of a global ministry that teaches very heavily on dreams and marvels and all that kind of thing. Okay, so now Marvel science dreams, clues to scientific theories and models revealed by common everyday symbols. Now, for me, here's an example, modern technology has appeared many times in my dreams, specifically with something that used to be in the Air Force a few decades ago, the SR-71 Blackbird. And we're going to deal with that today. That was in one of the dreams, but it has appeared many times in dreams, and it took me a while to realize, duh, God is using this as a symbol to tell me that the whole message of the dream is about a marvel of technology, which relates to the invention that he has now given me. Okay, also, those dreams have included movie and TV show references like, Marvel Avengers, The Flash, Superman, Wonder Woman, stuff like that, Captain Marvel, all that. Okay, now this is again the same pattern with Einstein's sledding dream. A common everyday symbol was used to convey a mystery of science. Okay, and by the way, I do have other dreams, science dreams that I haven't even sorted out yet. And sometimes, again, a mystery can take months or years to uncover the real full meaning of it. And I wanted to redo this video here today because I felt like I had a better way of explaining it. And I also wanted to make sure, did I really have the right understanding from 3 years ago? And I believe that I do, even though I can't say that I have the complete whole understanding, because sometimes Marvel dreams, mysteries of creation can take a long time to unravel and totally decode. So I want to get into the dream here, February 6, 2021, that pointed to this Australian scientist's explanation of gravity. And again, it's going to be kind of complex. Some of you could probably get lost in this. My recommendation is to hit the pause button and read this thing yourself. I'm going to read it. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on it, but you might want to just pause this thing and read it, and so you're ready to want to go on to the rest of it. I'm going to decode all these primary symbols. Okay, so here's what happened. I'm watching, in the dream, I'm watching two SR-71 Blackbird jets, but they're basically like a full-size jet, but they're radio-controlled size with human pilots, so they're like much smaller. However, they still have human pilots. So, it's a metaphor. It's not exactly what would happen in real life. So there's two models, and I'm seeing them. Okay, the first jet goes up in the air erratically and like diagonally and erratically across a taxiway. So the focus is on this one jet. Then it switches in flight, just, maybe 10 feet above the ground, to a hover mode. In real life, that jet couldn't do that. It was just extremely fast, but it couldn't hover. But in the dream, it's hovering. And it converts itself in a way that the middle opens up with a big fan pointing down. And then the pilot seat, okay, so there's a big fan in the middle of the jet that, in the real life, there isn't one. But in this, it's a dream. Again, it's a metaphor, it's a parable. So there's a fan that appears in the middle of the jet, and that's what allows it to hover. Now, the pilot seat, it turns around, faces the back of the jet, and slides all the way back, attaches itself to the outside of the fan, and starts spinning around at a high rate of speed around the outer ring of the fan. Okay, so now it's hovering like an RC drone or maybe like a helicopter, something like that. Okay, so this is where you might want to pause this and just read it again, or just back up and hear my explanation again, because now we're going to start getting into the primary symbols. Okay, so something you learn in Bible-based dream interpreting is that guys like Joseph, here's how they interpreted. They separated all the primary symbols, interpreted them, like broke the dream down in all the main symbols, interpreted each one and defined them separately, and then put them back together to see what kind of a picture they would present, or a message. Now, that is like being a supernatural Sherlock Holmes, a detective. You take everything apart, you look at all the different segments of all the evidence, all these separate details. You're very specific about details. You got to be very careful and very keen to pay attention to details, because that's where you're going to get the meaning. Something's going to jump out at you as you study the details, and you have to keep going over and over again. So you take everything apart, you define the terms, you interpret them, and then you put it back together to see what is it telling you. That's how you interpret dreams from a biblical perspective. Okay, so here are the primary symbols. Number one, the most obvious is the SR-71 Blackbird jet. Number two is a radio-controlled model. Number three, the erratic flight when it took off. Number four, the fan that appeared in the middle of it. In real life, there is no such thing in that jet. Number five, the pilot seat, because it did something unusual. And number six, the spinning motion. Okay, those are primary symbols. We're going to get into all that. Okay, so first of all, here's an SR-71. If you're not familiar with it, this is what it looks like. And this is also happens to be a radio-controlled model, so you got two in one. And that's about the size of the one I saw in the dream right there. This is a pretty big radio-controlled model. It's got actual jet engines in it. And so you can go on videos and find all this. I got this, of course, off Pinterest. But that's what it looks like. So if you want to find out what the real jet looked like, go to thesr71blackbird.com and you can see all the pictures. You're probably familiar with it. Some of you, maybe some of you are not, but this is what the real jet looked like. And again, it was a spy jet, a Mach 3 spy jet back several decades ago, and they used it to fly over what was then the Soviet Union. It went very high altitude, the highest altitude of anything back then. And it was the fastest. It was the beginning of stealth technology, very low observable. It had a small radar signature. You can see the way it's made. It's meant to be very stealthy with radar. And so they would fly this at such high speed and high altitude over the Soviet Union, and the missiles couldn't shoot it down, because by the time they saw the thing and launched, the jet was gone. It was long gone, and the missiles couldn't catch up with it. So that's what made this such a very effective jet way back then. So no one never got shot down. Okay, so it was very effective, but also extremely expensive to operate. That's why we don't have them anymore. But of course, you can get into all the thing about, is there a new replacement and all this kind of thing. And so we won't talk about that today. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I actually saw in the dream. We're going to make a little illustration here, looking from a top-down perspective. So looking top-down. Okay, here is what the conversion looked like while it was hovering there in flight. So you can see suddenly a fan appeared right there, and that allowed it to hover, and it was, of course, spinning. Then the pilot seat, it turned around facing the back of the jet, slid over, and attached itself to the outside of the fan, and was spinning around the outer surface of the fan. Okay, so that's what I saw. Strange stuff. You have a dream like that, you're like, what in the world does this mean? And it took me, I think, 2 months before I was able to figure out what the message was and how to connect it when I saw this video from this Australian scientist. Like, wow, that's what the dream was about. Okay, so now here again, the primary symbols, these are the 6 symbols. Now let's get into a little bit more. Okay, so the SR-71, it's a complex metaphor. Number one, it's a marvel of technology. And again, it took me a while to realize that when I kept seeing this in dreams, God was telling me he's talking about a marvel of technology. That was the message, the overall theme of that dream, and everything inside of that dream related to a marvel of technology, which was my invention that he ultimately gave me the details for. Okay, number two, a prototype of stealth technology. So we're going to say it's a marvel of technology. It's a prototype. Remember that. It's a metaphor of a scientific model. Remember I said it was a radio-controlled model. A model. What is a model? Well, in this case, that means a metaphor of a scientific model. Okay. And that's sometimes dreams are wordplay. You got to be very diligent and very sensitive to details. Sometimes your dreams involve uh, details like that and word plays, and that's word plays are all over the Bible, by the way. So that's this. I'm just telling you, this is how you do Bible-based dream interpreting. Okay, and again, the last thing we're not really going to deal with was a supernatural Marvelic ability. And so when I've seen this jet in dreams, it has four meanings at times, or it could mean any one of those. Okay, so now let's deal with a pilot seat, or just talk about what does it mean? What is the definition of a pilot? Okay, and this is where you have to go off and have a more broad interpretation of a pilot, because just the pilot flying the jet, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the interpretation. So we got to break it down and define the term in the most basic sense, and then figure out, okay, now what does it mean? Which of all these definitions makes sense when you try to put it back together again? Um, so the definition, according to the freedictionary.com, it can be number one, a television program produced as a prototype of a series considered for adoption by a network, a prototype. Number two, serving as a tentative model for future experiment or development. Number three, one who guides, a person who guides or directs a course of action for others to follow. Okay, moving on. Now, you got to connect dots. Sometimes you have to look at this abstractly. You have to connect dots like A equals B equals C. Okay, so pilot, prototype, first. Okay, so that back to the definition again, it can be a first of a new kind. It leads to an experiment or a new development. Again, we're thinking scientific models here. Directs a course of actions for others to follow, specifically with something new being brought out. Okay, now a reminder, these dreams are parables, and a parable is one thing that relates to another. Jesus spoke in parables many times. Go back and read the New Testament, the Gospels. Jesus spoke in parables. He used one thing to relate to another. He was very good at teaching. Okay, now this is a personal symbol that was only known to me, and sometimes your dreams will also have personal symbols that someone tries to interpret it. They're not going to get it because they don't know that God is using a symbol that only you know what it means, like based on your childhood, as in my case here, or something else in real life that only you know about. And someone who's just trying to interpret using basic principles is not going to get it because only you know what that one thing means. And you have to figure out, like, you have to have this aha moment where, like, oh, that's what it's about. So that happened here. Okay, so the erratic flight was a metaphor that relates to this TV show from 1981 called The Greatest American Hero. If you ever saw it, he's a guy, he gets a red suit with that gives him supernatural powers, comes from a UFO that appears in the TV series, and the UFO is spinning. Okay, spinning. What do we talk about? Spinning, which is a symbol of anti-gravity. Okay, well, UFOs operate in anti-gravity, and even if you don't believe in them, if you understand just the basic what is a UFO? Well, they all operate on anti-gravity. You don't see them with rocket thrusters. Okay, you never see that. So again, we're dealing with hovering anti-gravity, something unusual going on here. And so you say, well, how do we get to that? Okay, so that's what the erratic flight. Remember, the jet took off erratically and diagonally. And in this movie, this guy was very erratic. He was very clumsy. He couldn't fly. He was very clumsy when he was flying, and he would always crash land. And so that's what the erratic flight. I knew the erratic takeoff of this jet referred to this TV show. Like I say, remember, a complex metaphor, complex dreams. Marvel dreams are complex, very complex. And so I understood this. It took me a while, but I understood that the erratic flight related to what was the main themes of this TV series, Greatest American Hero. The UFO, hovering, spinning, anti-gravity, and this guy with supernatural abilities. Again, you see all the four meanings in there. Okay, now this dream, I began to realize this dream didn't make sense until about 2 months later. I saw a video on YouTube by Wallace Thornhill. And the videos, you can find them. I don't have I can't really put a link on here, but you can look this up, The Future Science in Our Electric Universe. And that is the Thunderbolt, or the YouTube channel, Electric Universe UK, or The Long Path to Understanding Gravity at Thunderbolts Project YouTube channel. I always recommend the Thunderbolts Project because they're very active. They post a lot of stuff. They have many playlists you can go find. If you want a certain subject of what they deal with, go straight to their playlists on the Thunderbolts Project. I always tell people, I refer them to the scientific basis for the invention, the space energy invention that I now have the details for, that this is a scientific basis. So if you want to understand how it operates, I always tell people, go to the Thunderbolts Project YouTube channel and watch their videos. The more you watch, the more it'll start to make sense. But you got to have an open mind, and you probably have to watch a lot of them, just like I had to, for it to start to make sense. And you got to have, like I say, you can't just be staunchly having this stronghold. Oh no, it's the mainstream science. That's the only thing that's right. Well, you want to stay stuck in outdated science and technology. Then just stay there. But God showed me this is what's correct right here. So again, my dream pointed here, and I'm going to tell you how. Hopefully I can make sense of it. I did some screenshots from the video presentation, but you really have to go back and watch this yourself. You got to find it on YouTube and you got to see it yourself. I can't include clips from the video and all that. I don't want to get into trouble. I don't know how this stuff works, but I don't want to start trying to cut and paste videos that are their material and put it on mine. I just don't want to get in trouble for that kind of thing with copyrights and all that. So I just gave a couple screenshots so you can see Wal Thornhill right here on the left side at an Electric Universe conference a few years ago. He dealt with this whole subject of how can gravity be electric at the atomic level. And here are the diagrams. I can't give a good explanation of these. You got to hear it from him. And he shows how you have like a polarity where the atom, just any atom whatsoever, just any atom, if it stretches in one way, in an oval shape, oblong shape, you'll end up with a positive end on one side and a negative end on the other. And for gravity to be electric, you have a whole bunch of atoms, like billions of atoms, all line up with the same polarity in the same direction. So they're all, it's like magnetism, the positive on one side, negative on the other. It's just that kind of a thing. And he was explaining how you can have gravity be an electric force by switching the polarity of billions of atoms all at the same time, instantaneously. And by the way, this happens at a rate faster than the speed of light. And he explains how that can even be possible and why gravity cannot possibly operate at the speed of light. He explains that, like say the distance between the Earth and the Sun, if gravity operated at the speed of light, then our gravitational field would be 8 minutes behind the sun, and all the solar, and that's just for us. What about all the other planets? There would be no orbits around the sun. All the planets would be thrown off into space. You got to hear it from him. But this is the basic of how he explained it. Also, even more relevant, specifically in a more understandable way, he showed a video in there from a guy, I forgot, it might have been in England, I don't remember. He showed a demonstration of a gyroscope and how when you have a gyroscope spinning, and he showed it attached to a moment arm with a weight on it, it basically had the effect of anti-gravity. The thing rose up off the air when the gyroscope was spinning at a high rate of speed. It rose up off the air. And you got to see it yourself. Go to the video and watch it. And you can see my little red line, the little scroll line in the bottom of the video. You can see about where he discusses this. So again, go to that video, and I think I'm at the 34-minute point there where he discusses the gyroscope. Just look really closely on my slide here. You can see what I'm talking about. And so, again, the gyroscope and the atoms and the spinning and the positive and negative elements, or the polarity, that is how he started talking about gravity in that way, and how you can line up, again, a ton of atoms and they all line up with the same polarity, and that's how you get gravity. Okay, again, mainstream science does not have an explanation for gravity. They say it's the weakest force. They say it's one of the four forces, but they can't explain it. So this is the only explanation I've heard that actually makes sense, and it does fit my dream. So this is what I'm going with. Okay, now the decode clue. We got to get back into this thing about the spinning motion and the pilot seat attaching to the outside of the fan. Okay, the pilot refers to a positive charge, say the proton. Um, and so the spinning motion, the positive charge of the atom, hovering anti-gravity with the jet in the dream. We're going to be okay. I'm going to try to tell you how do we go from a proton to a pilot seat. How do we get there? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to try to tell you. Again, it's very complicated, but I'm going to try to explain it. Okay, again, the pilot seat. Okay, the positive charge moves to the outer ring. Okay, positive charge moves to the outer ring of a gyroscope. When you have a spinning gyroscope, it's positive on the outside because all the atoms, while they're spinning, they all stretch in such a way that the positive charge, which is, I think it's heavier, so that's why it goes to the outside of the gyroscope. So the outer ring is positive and the inside is negative. So there you have an alignment of atoms on a spinning object. Okay, number two, the positive outer ring relates to the positive end of the atoms. Okay, number three, anti-gravity effect results from the spinning of the gyroscope. Okay, again, this validates the models used by Walt Thornhill, describing gravity as electric force. Okay, next, we got to connect the dots. By the way, okay, so here's how you find out the idea of a pilot and a prototype and first relating to a proton. Physics is in the Bible, by the way. Matthew 6:33, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. I didn't make this up. I didn't discover this on my own. I'm going to tell you where I got this from, but that word first in that verse is a Greek word in a Strong's Concordance, G4412, and it is the word proton. And there's a teaching series I'm going to show you where that literally does mean the atomic particle of a proton, a positively charged particle. That is actually what that word first is referring to. Again, this is a verse that has a mystery concealed. Remember, I said Proverbs 25:2, God conceals things. He conceals them and expects kings to search it out. We're supposed to be searching those things out. And this is a mystery because it's there, it's in plain sight, but you'll never see it unless God specifically comes to you and reveals it, which is how this happened. Okay, so a proton it deals with first, which is a prototype. Okay, so you have first in time and place in a succession of things or persons, first in rank, influence, honor, chief, principle. And again, that comes from the Strong's Concordance, G4412. Seek ye first, seek ye protons. Okay, of the kingdom of God. Here's the teaching. Protons, the mysteries of the kingdom of God by David E. Taylor, koggc.org. I have been connected to this ministry, global ministry, with 90 plus million followers for the last 9 years. When I first went there for the first time in person, the first teaching I picked up was this one right here. I'm showing you protons, the mysteries of the kingdom of God. I saw that, it grabbed my attention. I was like magnetically drawn to it. And I knew that I had to hear what was in there. And when he started teaching about that, I was just astonished because he shows in the Bible, he tells that Jesus came to him, talked to him, explained this to him, and to David E. Taylor. And so he explained that physics literally is in the Bible, and there's a mystery of protons that goes back hundreds of millions of years, way before Adam and Eve, way before. And this is where you start to find out the mystery of creation, specifically the Earth, this Earth, our planet, that is not like the creation, the Christian creation scientists, they have no clue what really goes on. They try to squeeze everything into 6,000 years, and you can't do it because there were things that happened millions of years, hundreds of millions of years ago. The secular scientists, they don't believe in God. They actually are right about some things. They are. And this is the teaching you're going to get that. And a lot of the Christian scientists are wrong about some things because they don't have revelation. A lot of them, they don't. And so they're actually wrong about some things. And you have these people, polarities, talk about polarity. You have the secular and non-believing scientists at odds with the Christian scientists. And because in some cases, they're both wrong about certain things, both of them wrong. But they are so polarized that they won't listen to each other or they won't come and find a common ground. But really, this you can't understand this unless God comes directly to you and reveals it. and shows you in this visitation when Jesus, he showed him in the Bible. He didn't just make up some stuff like some of these false religions are made up by a false angel that appears and contradicts the Bible. No, this Jesus appeared and showed in the Bible. It said, this is what it says, this is what it means. So it's all biblically founded. If it's not biblically based, if it goes off in some wacko stuff, then it's wrong. You got to throw it out. And so those of us like myself and koggc.org, we believe in visitations that Jesus does, and it's all in the Bible. John chapter 14 says it right there. And it's historically proven, in the last 2,000 years, Jesus has been appearing to people. I don't want to get off on that right now, but just to say that it's biblical, and you got to have biblical foundation. Otherwise, you're going to get way off. Okay, so that's the teaching. That's how you connect the idea of protons and a positive charge and a prototype, and that's how you connect to the dream. And because I already knew this teaching, that I was able to relate the dream and put this all together. Those who don't know this would be lost and would not be able to connect the dream properly. Okay, so now new energy tech inventions require proper science. Again, anti-gravity is easily possible when gravity is an electric force. Okay, very briefly, this means the end of reliance on combustible fuels, and also the world's first green energy on a global scale. That's what my dream showed. Again, I've seen cars, airplanes, rockets, civil power production, all this stuff changed because of the energy tech invention. He's shown me all the different ways this invention is going to play out in uh, in real life. And with the invention, the details, the specific technical design that I now have. So, okay, and you got to follow my other videos and check out everything I posted on both websites to really understand this right here. But I've seen the future, and it is not the stuff we have now at all. Okay, space energy invention revealed in dreams right here. Okay, look very closely at the what I've drawn here. These little logo images right here. I drew those myself. I'm somewhat of a digital artist. I wasn't really planning to be, but God kind of had me get into that because I had to do a lot of technical drawing for the invention that he started revealing. The next global energy tech is now ready to build. It is right now, bluecubrocket.com. And look very closely. I am telling you truth in plain sight, what we are actually building. I am showing you in plain sight without telling you what it is. Right there is what we're building. Okay, God still speaks in dreams and gives knowledge of inventions. And go to chrismichaels.com. I can tell you more about that. Okay, I also have a lot of ebooks where I discuss either my personal story of dreams and my discovery of my life purpose, which is publicly documented. Two of my ebooks, I have four of them, but two of them, The Supernatural Science of Reaching a God-Given Purpose, that's the process I went through to find out, first of all, that God speaks in dreams, that he has a specific, unique purpose for every single person, and it's unique. It's not the same as anyone else. It's very unique. And when I started going through this process, which I explain in that book, it's a fairly simple book. I'm actually working on an updated version of that, which will be a little longer and have a little bit more information in it. But that is the simple version of the process I went through to find out that God even had a plan for me to have this invention. Most of my life, I did not know it. I wasn't even looking for it. It wasn't until He started. I dropped my own plans for life and accepted His and said, "I'm going to go with your plan, God, because mine's not getting me anywhere." And I was astonished. If you've heard me talk about how big this thing is, it is astonishing how big this invention is global. It's massive, and it's tied in with so many elements of God's plan for the entire world. Okay, Marvel Dream Revelations are the supernatural abilities, the marvels, miraculous acts that you see in movies that I've talked about. I said it's one of the four levels of interpretation of my Marvel dreams. I have a ton of those. I'm talking about things like turning invisible, flying, hyper jumping, moving things with the mind, all this kind of stuff. Power over the elements of creation. I have tons of dreams about this. That's where I talk about that in that ebook. I also do deal with some of the technology dreams, the Marvel technology dreams that relate to this invention in that book. Also, I have a video series as of right now. It's free. I call it Phase 1 because I have a Phase 2 product coming that'll follow up after all this. But right now, Marvel Dream Revelations is a video series and an ebook. So you can get those chrismichaels.com. And that just gives you more of the background of how I even got to this point to begin with. And like I said, this has been going on for over a decade now that God's been showing me things in dreams, and I've been learning how to interpret. I'm not new at this. I've been doing this for quite a while. Okay, so you can follow me. I have actually more now. I have more social media platforms than what I put on the slide. I've been experimenting with Odyssey, a video platform. I'm back on BitChute again. I was before. Of course, I have YouTube, Rumble. I'm on that. Truth Social, Facebook, X, Telegram, Spotify. Yeah, I'm kind of still using that. My ebooks are on Gumroad and Amazon. You can find them there. Go to my like chrismichaels.com/store. You'll find where all my products are that I've just mentioned. So you can also sign up and follow along with everything I post there and find out everything else that I couldn't cram into this one video, which is now approaching almost an hour right now. So back to the main slide. Okay, that's the best I could do with explaining a dream. It's very complex. Like I say, some of the symbols are only known to me personally. This is a good example of a Marvel dream. If you have something like this, again, I refer back to Einstein. I refer back to Kekule, to yeah, everyone else. Elias Howe, all these people, and many, many more, not just the ones I mentioned there, many more, a lot of scientific breakthroughs, medical breakthroughs, just business ideas. All these things have come in dreams at night, and God has been giving them. But I'm really one of the first people that have actually come out and acknowledged that these dreams are from God, understanding how to interpret them biblically, go back and point to the Bible where you can show biblically how you can ground the interpretation on biblical verses. And I've done that. I did a little of that here, but a lot more on my website. But a lot of these people, they had scientific breakthroughs or business ideas. That, yeah, they followed the dream. They did what it showed, but they don't give credit to God. That a lot of them didn't even know God was speaking to them. I did. I've known that, and so my whole process of getting this invention is very, very different than what everyone else out there has done. And again, it's publicly documented. So anyway. That's all I want to say for today. This is the best I could do with this. Like, again, I say some of this gets into very complex. You may have to listen to this several times to really understand what I'm saying, and that's fine. I've said I had to do that with these guys with the Electric Universe. And I had to do a ton. I was very, very diligent in studying. I put a ton of time into this into what I mean is into learning how to interpret dreams. Some of it came to me naturally, but a lot of it I had to really, really, really study. And I still have dreams on science and creation and that kind of thing that I still haven't fully sorted out yet. A lot of them I have, but not all of them. So again, Marvel dreams, mysteries of creation. It can take time for God to reveal things to you. But you got to search. You got to learn how to search and study the right way using the right principles, which I've given you a little indication of here. So again, I do interpret dreams on my website, chrismichaels.com. If I get to be busy at some point, I will. I won't be able to, but I will have alternate means where you can go to other places. Say, for instance, the global ministry I'm part of, gogcc.org. They have a full-time staff, and they do interpret dreams either by phone or by email, and they can get busy. But if you're persistent, you can get either them or me to help you out with the dream interpretation. So I still do that when I'm able to. Okay, so that's all for today. Check out my resources. Thanks for watching. Hope you heard this with an open mind. It's probably something you never heard before, especially if you're a science type person. This probably sounds crazy to you, but again, I had to go through the process. I didn't know this most of my life, and I learned it, and my entire life changed drastically when I finally learned everything I'm talking about here. So that's all for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and come back, check all my resources. Okay, God bless.